Today, I'm really excited about the guest that we have because she is the president of an organization that I've actually been a part of for 3, 4 years now. It is a networking organization called Centersphere, and it helps you grow and learn, and specifically when it comes to networking with others to grow each other's business. So today I get to have Erin Pearsons on the podcast with us today. Erin, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, Evan. Thanks for having me. I am good. I feel like that's a question we need to ask every day right now with how fluid things are and just the rapid nature of the way things are changing. But good. Sitting here in Omaha, Nebraska, and we're actually having 75-degree weather today. So it's a good day.
Good. Yeah, it's pretty windy here, so a little chilly and really windy. So, well, let's just kind of get right into it. I've been a part of Centersphere for a while now, and I've been a part of other networking groups as well. I've learned a lot, both positive and, from positive things and negative experiences, both from other groups and from Centersphere. And in today's episode, I really want to talk about, as an entrepreneur or a business, how do we grow our relationships with the people around us so that we not only become more useful to them, but when we become more useful, we also inherently raise our value, and then people use us more for our own businesses as well. So what's the beginning stages of becoming valuable for other people?
That's good. Right when you asked that question, the main word that popped in my head was authenticity. Growing relationships, especially in the business world, it's so easy to think of, okay, if I connect with this person, what can I get from this relationship? How can they send me business? Is this going to be a good referral source? And people see through that. I mean, quite honestly, we are sold to day in and day out. And so when you go into making these new connections and making these business relationships with a true level of authenticity, where you are really wanting to genuinely know someone, and also focusing on bringing that value, how you can help them, making that priority, it's going to wind up so much better for everyone in the long run. Not only are they going to be so much more invested in the relationship with you, but you're going to end up getting, I would say, way more out of it yourself on the other end of it.
I would absolutely agree. One of the things I've noticed in doing networking groups is that when people are there just for themselves, typically a group dies out quicker. And so in terms of connecting with the right people, assuming I'm already wanting to be authentic and assuming I'm already wanting to help other people, how do I go about finding other authentic people?
Well, they say we surround ourselves with we're most like the people we surround ourselves with, right? And so I think inherently, an authentic person is going to be surrounded by authentic people. However, when you join a networking organization like Centersphere, where it brings in people, from all over really the country, into this network of professional networkers and people that want to get to know you, how do you determine, one, who the authentic people are, which we'd like to say that the majority of our members are, but also which of those people are going to be good connections for you? Because at the end of the day, there is a level where it is about, a certain ROI on your membership investment.
Right.
I believe that ROI can be financial. It can be totally emotionally fulfilling. In so many ways can you get an ROI. But I think there's a huge piece of it to where you really have to think, okay, who is going to be those referrers into my pipeline? Who's going to be a natural connector and referrer to me? Because if that is a chance, quite possibly I'm going to be a natural one for them. So there's definitely intentionality behind figuring out who to connect with. Not to say that not everyone is a good connection. That's absolutely true. Everyone is a good connection. However, when in the realm of business, some are just going to be more in your lane than others.
Right. So, I mean, to break that down, let's just use real estate as an example because I'm a real estate agent. In terms of people that I could refer business to, you look at insurance agents
Mhm.
who have home and auto. You look at lenders who fund loans, title companies, inspectors, pest inspections, roofers, moving companies, you know, repairmen and painters. You know, those are industries that are directly affecting the house, and those things come up consistently through different transactions. And then I guess, you know, the other thing too, and this is the same mindset, whether you're in real estate or not, that you have to have. Now, those are the people who I can refer to, who are individuals that can refer to me, and how do I build those relationships with them? So people that could refer business to me probably wouldn't be so much an insurance agent because they're normally after the fact. But a lender would be able to do that. A moving company would be able to do that. Divorce attorneys would be able to do that. Financial advisors, you know, so there's a lot of different ways to see kind of how you can build relationships. I guess what I'm trying to say is you need to be strategic about the relationships that you're wanting to build.
Absolutely. And I think very strategic about where you put the time of building those relationships, because I mean, it takes time to build a relationship. We say, do not join Centersphere and expect referrals out of the gate because they don't know you yet. They don't trust you. What does that take? That takes time. That takes commitment. That takes an investment in that person. And so you absolutely have to be strategic in that. What we tend to see in our most successful members is that they create these own little, for lack of a better word, spheres of these referral partnerships. And so, like you said, you might not be able to get a lot of referrals from the insurance agent, but you get it from the mortgage lender. Well, the mortgage lender refers to you to sell the house, and then you refer to the insurance person. The insurance person then refers back up to the mortgage lender, and so it becomes this cyclical kind of referral sphere, I would say, within the membership. You're always going to have your one-off people that can refer you and say, hey, like, yeah, my neighbor down the street's moving. I've got a great realtor, Evan, for you. You should definitely, check him out. I totally trust him, that sort of thing. But it's where we see that intentional, strategic, what I want to say, just that intentionality around those relationships, where you're going to see them, at least most of the business financial ROI with those referrals and those relationships.
Right. You know, so I've led networking groups before.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that really stuck out to me is a symbiotic relationship, but specifically, there's a Bible verse that really connects with me when it comes to networking and relationship. It comes out of Proverbs 11:25, and it says, "A generous person will prosper, and whoever refreshes others will also be refreshed."
Mm-hmm.
Proverbs 11:25. And so I think when it comes into the mindset of what people need to have, you know, and I'm just going to be honest, I've been a part of networking groups for a while, and I've received one lead in 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
which is really bad. That one lead turned into business, which was really good. And what I've noticed, and why my situation is a little different, is because for the career I'm in real estate, when you get into these groups, they're industry specific. So you can't have multiple real estate agents in there. Every group that I've been a part of didn't grow and fell apart very quickly. And so that there is turnover when you build networking relationships where people just stop coming, and you have to have the right people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why it's important to find the right people on the front end, but I'm still building. I'm not giving up on these groups. And I've been a part of other groups, but I couldn't be the real estate agent because there's already an existing real estate agent. So in terms of finding a group, definitely find a group that doesn't already have your profession in it, because that will help.
Yes, absolutely.
However, that doesn't mean that you should not still join in any capacity. You know, I joined, I think, multiple groups as a podcast host,
Sure.
while there wasn't an open group. And then I went and decided to go create a group and doing that. But when it comes to sustainable relationships and building a networking group, what are some of the advices you would give a group to be sustaining? Because I've been a part of both with Centersphere and without Centersphere about 4 different networking groups. I am now building one, and it'll be my 5th one I'm actually in, and I want it to last. And so I'd love some tips on what you think would create a sustainable group.
Yeah, that's great. I'm writing down a few notes, so I make sure to hit on them. But, um, I think it boils down to the basics as far as that goes for our sustainable chapters. We have had groups that have been together, I mean, truly since the beginning of Centersphere, which we're 10 years old. And those people are committed to each other like nobody's business, and not just from a professional level, from a very personal level. I mean, these are close friends. And I would say there's a couple key things out of the gate that these successful chapters and groups do. One is they establish their culture. And what I mean by that is they know who they are and they know who they're not. One great thing about Centersphere is we definitely give our groups autonomy to like kind of you be you. Our CEO likes to say, we let people adult. There are certain structural components to our groups that we require, but for the most part, it's you know each other, you know what you want, make this group work for you. And so by establishing that culture, you're going to attract in like-minded individuals that are drawn to something like that. And at the same point, the members are going to be more bought in because it's something that they can really connect with. And so I think establishing kind of your identity or your culture for your group is huge. I also think it comes down to the leader, having the right leader in place that isn't necessarily the one that's doing everything week to week, but they're able to engage and influence the group. They're able to see, hey, so and so and so and so should connect because I think they would be a great person or a great connection for each other. They're able to motivate the group. The group gets bought in to the individual mission of that group. And so I think having the right leader and or leaders in place is definitely key. And I think that goes really for anything, whether it's a business, a Centersphere group, a nonprofit. Having the right leader with the right vision and the right commitment to it, that bleeds down. And our successful groups, we definitely see that in.
Perfect. As you're talking, I'm taking notes because, as again, I'm starting a networking group online because there's only 3 of us right now. Mm-hmm. And I decided that instead of trying to meet in person with just us 3, it would probably burn us out too quick if it's only us 3 meeting right away.
Yeah.
And so we're starting out online until we can get enough people to actually meet in person. And so we're talking a lot about culture and the environment that we're wanting to establish and stuff like that. In terms of leadership in a group, you said leader or leaders. Mm-hmm. What would be an effective strategy to have other very busy people in their own careers step up and be leaders to grow the group?
Yeah, and well, I think you hit on a valid point right there out of the gate is we are all busy. And it's something like a networking group. It's not like you're getting paid to do that work, right? It's kind of volunteer work to feed that pipeline into your business. And so it truly does take a team. Again, our most successful chapters have teams all around them. Back when I was in my career before Centersphere, I was actually a chapter president. And so I've kind of lived through this a little bit. And we had a really, really successful chapter. Of course, I'll say one of the best chapters ever. But it was because of the team that I had around me. And it was lifting the burden, I guess, for lack of a better word, together of the to-do list, the tasks and that needed to be done. But it was also just being so simple in what is important and what's going to attract people to our group. Back at that time, I had numerous people come up to me, like new members, after they would join. They would come up and say, I wasn't even really looking to join a group, or I had no intention of really joining Centersphere right now, but I just felt so welcome. And so being strategic to the point of, hey, who is our leader who is like the guest person? They're focused completely on guests. They're welcoming them. They're making sure we're following up with them. Because inviting is great, but if there is absolutely no follow-up or no engagement with that guest, who wants to be a part of that? They want to be a part of an environment they feel welcome in and that they see value in. So really lifting that, just lifting that burden as a team. So having a president, a vice president, maybe someone who takes notes and sends them out to the group afterwards, having someone in charge of guests. Some of our groups have treasurers where they collect a certain amount of maybe an extra dues on the side that they have a social with or donate to a nonprofit or whatever they want to do. But again, that's part of the culture that they set and identify from the beginning.
Okay, perfect. What are some questions that I have yet to identify that I should ask myself as an entrepreneur, as a business person, in terms of networking and building relationships?
That's good. Definitely, I mean, probably the most apparent one, but like what relationships, would be beneficial to me and my business? And then like, I also think, who are those people in your community that you want to get closer to? Who are those influencers? The easiest way to grow any sort of networking group is to have, those top influential people that not only are you super excited that they themselves are a part of the group, but their words carry weight when they're talking to other people and bringing them into the group as well. So I would say, identifying those rock stars, if you will, that you really want to be a part of it. I would also say, as anyone is looking to start a group, to talk about the investment of time and what does it really look like for you on an individual level. And I think that's where it will become very apparent that it needs to be a team investment. There's not a ton of work to run these groups. Centersphere does provide a lot of the systems and back end for that. But what there is, it should be a group effort, because with that group effort, you're also going to get more buy-in as well.
Right. I like kind of what you're talking about, looking for relationships that are beneficial. People who are already influencers or people who are where you want to be. And then specifically, you talked about people that when they speak has weight, that has weight behind what they say. When I'm thinking strategically about those types of people in my life and building relationships, now, I probably feel more confident in this for myself, but pretend like I don't.
Mm-hmm.
How do I start a relationship with those people who I don't know? How do I create a natural, organic relationship, but it being strategic? Because sometimes when it's too strategic, it comes off as not authentic.
Yeah,
How is it
absolutely.
authentic and strategic?
Well, I think the easiest and best way, honestly, is, this will come as no surprise, through a connection you may already have. I'm with you. It can be almost come off a little like creepy or stalkerish if you were just to say, "Hey, Bob, like you're really influential in the community. You're an amazing leader. You do great business. I really want to connect with you and invite you into this networking, organization that I'm a part of." However, if you have a warm connections are everything. I mean, that's the basis of referrals, right? And so getting some sort of connection into their realm is going to be key. And I think it's the best way to do it in a very authentic way. It also can't be rushed. What organizations are they a part of? What nonprofit events do they attend? Figuring out where these people are in a non-stalkery way is going to be a great way to just naturally come across them and start building that conversation and connection with them.
In terms of passing referrals, having done this for a very long time, I don't even give most times the referral the choice of reaching out to the other person. I take the referral's contact information and I give it to the person who I want to connect with. Because if you just give the contact information to the person that you're wanting to refer, it almost just never happens.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is? And why do you think it's important that we actually connect with the contact who we're trying to refer to?
I think it happens for a variety of reasons. One, there's a level of unfamiliarity. If we just give this person their contact information and they never reach out, maybe they don't know what to say. Maybe it's not high priority. However, it's high priority enough for them to say something to you that made you think of the referral in the first place. Instead of giving the person that you were referring to the contact information for the lead, I would even go a step further. I recently read a book, and part of it was about priming the people that you're working with, whether it be, hey, we have a meeting, and then using verbiage like, I am so excited, I know it's going to be an impactful time together.
So
But
like
also,
the email you sent me earlier today.
okay, probably, yes. It's become natural habit to me, quite honestly. I found out I was kind of a natural primer, but it's a great way to build trust and make someone really comfortable with a referring situation. So let's say I'm referring my friend Amy over to Bob, who's a part of my networking group. What I'm going to do is either send a text or an email to each of them, or that includes both of them on it, and just, hey, you two, hope you're having a great day. Amy, please meet my friend Bob. Bob is this and that and the other. He's a phenomenal chiropractor. And I've been going to him for 10 years. Bob, please meet Amy. Amy is my friend, blah, 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 blah. Our kids go to school together. She is a rock star, and she's looking for this service. I have no doubt you two are going to enjoy getting to know one another, and hopefully, you can help solve ABC. Happy connecting. Something like that, where not only are they getting pumped up, like, whoa, like that felt good, like Erin just said some good things about me, but they're seeing that the other person is seeing them in a good light off the bat.
So I'm taking lots of notes here. And as you're saying that, I was just writing this out in a long form, and then I'm thinking, how can I just shorten this up so I can pay attention here? Essentially, when you're priming relationships, so for example, you said, hey, Evan, I'm so excited about our podcast for one today. I just want to make sure we're still on.
Mm-hmm.
That's an example of you priming. But what I didn't realize until we were talking about it is that it's also looking for other points of connection. And so you could have just waited until this conversation to connect with me, but you created or you looked for another point of connecting with me before we actually connected. And so in terms of Amy and Bob, you said, hey, Bob, here's Amy's information. Amy, here's Bob's information. Hey, maybe I might go so as far as to say, hey, Amy and Bob, in a group text, I just wanted to introduce you to, but you're not only creating points of connection, but you're also looking for unique spots of adding more connection where there might not normally be.
Yeah.
And that's a great piece of advice. I
I
mean,
don't.
especially, sorry, keep that thought, but especially in, for me as a real estate agent or in sales, to consistently connect with your client or future prospects, or your friends or your family. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're absolutely right. And quite honestly, I don't think there can be any more, like there cannot be too many connection points. Now, I guess with a caveat, you don't want to be that person that is, texting someone 5 times a day. But it's so, like, we are inundated with things, whether it be scrolling through the phone, the TV, the new, whatever. We're inundated with everything. So to be that, like, a little bit of a consistent connection reminder to someone, especially when you are providing value, whether it's just a new connection, whether the value is just a, hey, how are you? Like a message of hope. I just think that is an invaluable, easy piece that so many of us overlook because we think, well, that doesn't really matter. However, I think it makes it matter all the more. I was actually having a conversation with my husband the other day, and we were just talking about how, especially now that the world has gone virtual, there's a lot of formalities have been taken out of it. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, we're all in each other's houses, basically, dogs are barking, kids are walking in. But we've become very informalized. And what that has done, almost to a negative degree, is it's lowered the bar of
Expectations,
of expectation. So what the comment,
professionalism.
yeah, the comment that I made to my husband was, you know, what's really kind of sad? What makes someone exceptional now is not the exceptional. Like it doesn't take as much to stand out of the crowd because the bar has been lowered a little bit. And again, not that that's necessarily a bad thing in all cases. However, if you we don't want to lower that bar so much that no one is rising to those exceptional ranks. And again, what makes people exceptional doesn't have to be this, oh, well, I got my master's in this, or I'm featured on this news show, or I wrote this book. It can be something as simple as creating those connection points for someone where it might not even have been thought of twice once it was made, but it was probably noticed.
Mhm. One of speaking of just the season of life and virtual that we're in, I think one of the things that have stood out to me is the amount of just patience and grace that you
Mm,
can extend to other people in this time. I mean, that's a great thing to have in general. Um, but I have noticed the people that stand out most are the ones that have had more patience. So like if the kids run into the room or, they don't get upset when it's not high end or, there's just, they roll with the flow. That's something that has actually really, stuck out to me in this time. But going back to creating points of contact, I'm someone who I like to write cards. I have like right here in my desk, I have it full of cards so that I can write to people. There's other connection points through Facebook and other things that I do occasionally to connect with people that normally I don't. I think for me in my business, I would love to connect with more people. It would help my business drastically if I connected more with people. But I allow this idea of I'm busy, or not so much I'm
mhm,
busy, but just either not scheduled. Let me put it this way, not systematic.
mm,
I don't have a plan of how it's going to happen because even times with consistency, it's like, okay, I'm going to write cards and I'm going to make phone calls, but it's not consistent. It's not systematic. So, how do you create a system that allows you to reach out and connect with people on a consistent basis for relationship's sake, for building your business sake, but it not come off as robotic or inauthentic, like you're just making cold calls every single day?
yeah, that's a really good question. When you were saying that, it brought up TD Jakes once said, or not once said, he says, um, when he's asked, because he just does a million things, right? He's involved in a ton of different things. And he was asked, well, how do you even do this? Like, how do you even make it work? Like, you know, just logistically, how do you have this much time of the day? And he said, I'm going to butcher this, but it was something about like, I make sure I never outgrow my systems. And so
Wait, say that again.
I make sure I never outgrow my systems.
Mm.
And I think it's like you were talking to a non-systems gal. Like I don't, that's not my thrive space. Like I do not zone in that zone. However, they are so important. And we are gonna, most business professionals will make time for what is on their calendar. If it's not on their calendar, there is absolutely, it just doesn't get done for many of us. And so some of the best, my best mentors and people that like I really value their work ethic, and I think, oh my gosh, they must have 30 hours in a day compared to my 24. How do they do all of this? And they follow that. They plan the things in their calendar. They are intentional with it. They don't make excuses for it. They do what they had planned to do, and they don't put it off. There's a certain level of procrastinating on purpose that can be beneficial for things that aren't really necessary and tend to create that busyness that we all fall subject to. But like you were talking my language and you said you have cards. I am a huge believer in handwritten notes. I have a reminder that goes off once a week in my calendar that I have to write 3 notes. Some weeks it's easy. I can think exactly who I'm going to thank for their time or whatever. But sometimes I'm like, who am I writing a note to? And sometimes it's just a note of like, hey, I've been thinking about you. Hope all is well. Let me know if there is anything I can do for you. And there's something about getting a piece of paper in the mail that has your name on it and it's handwritten. You can tell it's not from the local whatever store. And it's just, it's different, and it creates another connection point and a different piece of value for people.
Yeah. So what, and maybe I'm asking the wrong person on this because you said you're not a systems girl. In your, because we can learn from failure as well. So in terms of where you've failed systematically in this area, what have you learned from it to kind of maybe point us in a direction like, hey, maybe try this aspect?
Yeah, I would agree with you that we definitely probably learn more from failing than we do from the win. I think from a systems aspect, I say I hate systems, but I've learned that I have to develop my own. And one of those systems was really, I guess, I don't know if this would classify under systems, but learning how to delegate and realizing that if you are the one trying to do everything, it's definitely not going to work. And so making delegation a part of your systems, having that team under, even if you don't have someone quote unquote under you, what can be kind of divvied out a little bit, and what is necessary that you do and have your hands on, because I'm a little bit of a control freak. Anyone that would know me would probably agree with that. And so realizing that it's going to be okay if I don't do this or if I have someone else help with this. And that's the only way that we can get really the most done that we need to, especially if you struggle with your systems.
Right. And for those of you listening, like, well, I'm a one person entity, I can't delegate anything. It's all me. Uh, just, I would probably check out virtual assistants, specifically Philippines, Asia areas, because your dollar goes a lot further over there. I've hired multiple virtual assistants that have saved me 20 hours plus a week of editing audio and video of podcast work. Because yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, I think that's great. And there's so many businesses that are 1 or 2 person people. And so they're probably like, well, great, Erin, but I have no one under me. I have no one to put this out to. Well, maybe it's not your business stuff then. Like, take a look at your personal life. What actually needs to be done by you, and what actually needs to be done. We live in this world of this perfect life getting portrayed on social media, right? Where, oh, not only are you the entrepreneur, you're also the kids coach. You're also sit on the board of a nonprofit. You're also making home cooked meals every night. And you also have a clean, like, let's kind of put some reality in that, where that's probably not true for most people. And it's not a bar that you have to hold yourself to. And so realizing, okay, maybe I don't need to clean my house, or maybe I'm going to hire out the house clean because I know that my time is more valuable being spent on my business, or I'm actually going to get an ROI on that. And I think also just having some real conversations. When my career really picked up, my husband's a firefighter, so he is gone a lot, where I'm kind of solo parenting it with our 2 kids. And when my career really picked up, it was super hard for me to do because I'm not one to ask for help, but I had to go to kind of our close inner circle of friends and family and just say, this is the season I'm in. I need your help. And so, are you willing to do that? And of course, like, it hurt for me to ask, and they were all on board. They're like, absolutely, let us know. Do not hesitate. We are here championing you on. And so I think realizing that you're not alone and setting up that team around you, and it doesn't have to be your work team. It can be your parents, your in-laws, your spouse, your siblings, whatever. But have that champion team around you, because they're going to help you when the systems may not be there, or the personnel or capacity isn't there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about just this process of scheduling and seasons. Like you were saying, you were in this specific season where you needed help. I'm in a season where we just had a kid. My real estate license is up for renewal at the end of the month. So I have a lot of education I have to do. I've already done the education, but I'm actually trying to get a broker's license for real estate. And so I'm going to actually be taking a test. Again, like I said, we just had a baby, just a lot of other stuff. And so, I had to give up um, going to some specific organizations that I like going to. I've had to give up um, volunteering at things. I've given up, you know, one of the biggest things I was supposed to give up was doing podcast interviews right now, but I haven't done that. I should, but I just enjoy it too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
And so for me, giving it up became something like I didn't want to do. Should I? Yeah, but it brings too much life and joy to me, and therefore it makes me thrive being able to do everything else. So then I also realized, hey, if I'm not doing something that keeps me active, fun, and thriving, then that might be a little too hard to take that away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But like I said, it's only for a season. Like you said, it's only for a season. And then when things change, you can redelegate stuff. You can put things back into your schedule. You can put things back into your calendar. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
No, I think that's so good. And you talked about like seeing people give so much grace right now. That grace has to be extended to ourselves as
Yeah.
well. I mean, let's just call it as it is. It is a weird time right now. And then you throw real estate license and baby and everything else that you're dealing with on there. This season is unlike probably very many other seasons in your life. It might be the one and only like this. And so giving yourself that grace to let go of things. And I think that's important to give yourself permission to maybe unmake some promises you've made, whether it's to yourself, to organizations that you're volunteering with. It's okay to unmake promises because, and don't hear me say like, go lie to everyone. That's not what I mean.
Right.
What I mean is things have changed from when that promise was made. And there is grace and there is freedom in that as well. When you were talking about being so busy, I wrote this down because it's something that it sits in my vehicle, kind of like by the speedometer or whatever. But when I'm feeling like that, because I tend to overthink too much, and I tend to get super super anxious when a lot's going on, and how am I going to get it all done, and all these things in life, coming at you from every angle. And then I remember, I'm pretty sure I heard this on Caleb one morning, but that God doesn't call the equipped, He equips the called.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you know that you're listening to the Lord and doing what you're supposed to be doing, He's got you. And I think just having that faith in that, and again, just there's so much freedom and just kind of letting go and falling back into that and knowing everything is going to be all right.
I want to piggyback off of what you're saying, that God equips the called, because and this is something I've struggled with in my life, where there's things and I want to do in my life, but I'm not, and I'm far away from it. And sometimes I try to get out in front of God by making things happen. But let's look at the people that God have used in the Bible. Joseph was in prison and then became second in command of all of Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
Moses was in the desert herding sheep when God called him to lead Israel out of Egypt. Jesus was on the cross. Nehemiah was retreating when God called him. Jonah was running the opposite direction from God's calling. But yet in every instance, God brought these men from a very far place away from where they were called to their calling. Mm-hmm. And I think we get discouraged when we're like, I'm nowhere near where I want to be or where I feel called or where my purpose or intention is. Well, neither were any of these men until the moment it happened. And what I'm realizing with God is that, specifically when it comes to entrepreneurship and business, because there's this idea where we have to make everything happen and that it has to go according to the plan I draw on my whiteboard and the goal-oriented sheet. Because we hear all these great successful stories of how they did it and this was their plan and they were strategic. But as Christians, I notice God operates differently. It goes from we show up, we put in the work He tells us to, but God makes the change. God makes the difference. We need to be responsible with what He's given us, but inevitably God is the difference. God is the X factor and He's the change maker. And so, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's so good. And I think, like you said, entrepreneurs and being in business, I think one of the things that's so frustrating, and again, you mentioned patience before. I won't speak for you, but I know a lot of entrepreneurs and being a business person myself, like patience isn't necessarily our biggest virtue. And because we want it to happen and we're on this, we've got this plan mapped out and the timing is our timing and we're on our schedule. And quite frankly, I think God just kind of laughs at that and is like, no, like, what are you doing? It's my timing. And I think, of course, hindsight is always 2020, but when we look back and
2020.
yeah, exactly. But when we look back and we are able to see a situation, whether it be in business or in life, I mean, and inevitably it was God's timing, and you're like, and it makes sense, and it's like, oh, that's why. And
Yeah.
thank God for God's timing. So yeah, I'm there with you.
2019, if you're listening to this, you somewhat familiar, but Erin's new. 2019 was probably one of the worst years of my life. Emotionally, spiritually, financially, terrible. 2020 has been one of the best years, despite COVID, and the anxiety that came with it. Despite that, it's been one of the best years of my life. And what's very crazy, at the beginning of 2020, I wrote down 2020 is going to be the best year I've ever had. And I wrote down 15 things I wanted to happen. And I've done that every year. I write down a big list of things and maybe one or two get crossed off each year, but I've always dreamt big. But this is the first time where out of the 15 things I've written, 12 or 13 have gotten crossed off. And so what I felt like was stolen from me last year has been multiplied unto me this year. And I couldn't have done it. It was all God. And to me this year, I've done so little marketing this year, but it's been one of my busiest, most referred seasons I've ever had. I'm not holding open houses. I'm not going door knocking. I'm not doing the things I've slaved over doing for years to grow my business. And then when all of a sudden all that's stripped from me, I'm thinking what the heck, God? How am I going to survive? Because I'm barely surviving doing all that. And now I'm not doing it anymore. Now what am I going to do? And all I've been doing is sitting back and being faithful with what I have, but yet having to trust God to make the difference. And what's so crazy is being forced in this place to trust God. I've seen miracles happen in our life this year. We've lost 2 vehicles this year from this time last year, 2 vehicles. And we decided we weren't going to go into debt. So what we ended up doing is saying, all right, well, and let me be specific. Not only did we lose 2 vehicles, we lost them within 1 day of each other.
Oh my gosh.
So one quit working and one got in a car wreck. Eventually we got one fixed, and then we were back to 1 vehicle, and then we paid for another vehicle in cash, and then we found out we were pregnant, and so we needed to change the small vehicle and get a van. So we ended up buying 2 cars in this year for over 10 grand each cash. That's 20 grand. I am middle class, okay? Maybe middle class. Middle class just doesn't have 20 grand to go throw at cars in cash typically. But God has been faithful. So I share all that to say, if you're out there and you're thinking about, God, how is this going to happen? Just know that there's God's faithfulness in this. And sometimes it's just trusting him and doing nothing to see when he shows up.
I think that's so good, Evan. Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I just went preacher mode for a second.
I like it. Preach on.
So, well, now it's your turn to say something. Anything you want.
About what?
I don't care.
Yeah, so 2020, how about that, right?
I mean, because we got off topic a little bit, so heck, I mean, go with where you want to go on this.
I'm not sure. I'm in church right now after that session from you. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. What is, in this year, something that you feel like God has been teaching you about?
Hmm. That's a good question. Okay, I'll reiterate the patience, like definite patience. And I hate to sound like a broken record, but I feel like his timing is everything. At Center Sphere, we've had big plans for growth, and we still have big plans for growth. And it's always been a oh, not quite yet, not quite yet. And part of that is we love, like, we are writing a story where we practice what we preach. Like, everywhere we
Yeah.
go, it's a connection. It's a referral that got us somewhere in a relationship with someone. And so we love that. But it was always like, it was almost like God was just like, not yet, not yet, not yet. And I so believe that I was put in my position with Center Sphere, that our CEO, Brett Boyer, was put in his position, with Center Sphere, and all of our members were put where they're at, where there is going to be almost like a revival of sorts of small business. And what we have seen from those that have stayed engaged in the network and have stayed engaged in Center Sphere, there has been so many of them have just leaned into each other. And it's about so much more than business. Our members weren't getting together talking about, oh, this is the vacuum I sell and this is why you should buy it from me. I mean, we're having hard life conversations together, because that is the season that we and they were in. And so rallying our troops, sort of kind of giving the rally cry to our communities of, we are here to support one another and to be here and be the backbone for our communities, like, for such a time as this. And I really feel like that is a part of Center Sphere's story. And so while the unknown of the day-to-day and looking to the future and the way that things change and just the state of our world right now, I mean, I'm not going to lie, it's terrifying when I think too much about it. But knowing that we've been put together and poised for such a time as this, it's just kind of amazing to just sit back and, again, just look at God's timing and say, like, you were right this whole time, and having that faith and, like, this is why we are here.
So, with everything that you're just saying, okay, I'm trying to figure out how to go a little deep spiritually into what you're saying, because I haven't gotten as deep as what I'm about to say. If any of you felt goosebumps when she was talking, that was the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
The Holy Spirit is the Spirit of God here on the earth presently in us, that allows us to hear God, to connect, communicate, to be guided by. And when she talked about a revival of small business, not only did I start getting goosebumps about that, but let's pay attention to what's going on in our country right now. I'm not going to try to get into politics, one candidate over the other or anything, but we've been shut down. We've been ostracized. There's been revolting. There's just a lot of mayhem. But spiritually speaking, churches have also even shut down. And then churches started opening. And in some places, churches are being throttled, not allowed to be opened, which is actually against the Constitution, because we have a constitutional right to gather. There is revival coming in the spirit, in the mind, in our streets. You're going to see two things happen. You're going to start, it hasn't happened, well, some of the protesting has already happened, but you're going to probably start seeing mass protests. And you're also going to start seeing mass revival. And we're going to enter into a stage in our country where there's going to be a drastic difference between the Spirit of God and the spirit of the world. And for those that want prosperity, for those that want peace, that want revival, the answer is within Jesus Christ, within the Spirit of God.
Totally fine. I think no matter which side anyone sits on, as far as the political side, I think we can all agree that a coming to Jesus and a second awakening is a good thing, and the world needs a little bit of that. So,
absolutely. So, Erin, before we end this, there's three questions that I actually like to ask each person that comes on the show. And the first one involves self-talk, specifically negative self-talk. What areas in your own life do you see that you struggle with, or
Mm.
specifically, what lie are you telling yourself or have you believed in terms of negative self-talk?
Yeah, that one's easy to answer. I have for years and still do, and it's been called imposter syndrome or however you want to say that, but just like, how am I faking everyone out? Like, you know, I'm not as good as they say I am, or not as like, wise, or whatever. And so I think that little voice, and I think we all have a voice that's similar to that, if not identical. And so, it's just learning to drown it out and really, feeding off of who you knew God made you to be, really, and trusting in that. So I would say, yeah, imposter syndrome.
What brings you peace?
With that in particular, or just with
Correct.
life?
No, just in general, what brings you peace?
Uh, you know, Obviously the Lord. Um, being, something that has happened in 2020, that I would say was important. Of course, it was important before, but God made us slow down, and it slowing down and cherishing these little moments that are just slipping through the cracks with family, in particular with my boys and my husband, and just learning to cherish all of those and realizing that, no matter what is thrown at us, because 2020 threw us quite a few curveballs, like they're my rock, they're my foundation, outside of Christ. And yeah, I would say just being with them, being in their presence gives me the most peace.
Awesome. And here's the last question. Other than God and your husband, what is the best decision you've ever made?
Mm. This is going to sound like a plug, and it's not, but like, honestly, probably joining Centers here and becoming a part of this team. It has grown me so much as a professional, as a person. It's grown me in my faith. It's, again, but I think all of those things are because I'm where God's calling me to be. So
Well, Erin, thank you so much for coming on to the show today. I've been a part of Centersphere, I think 3 or 4 years now, and I have thoroughly enjoyed a lot of the stuff that I've learned and the connections and the relationships. So, what states are Centersphere in for people that are in those states that are thinking about wanting to maybe join a chapter, or how they can even bring one to their state?
yeah, oh, that is great. We actually just brought on our National Director of Growth, Ben LeGros, here within the last month or so, that is actively working with people from across the country to bring the network to them. So just go to www.centersphere.com for any information about regional. Currently, this is going to test me because we've grown a lot here lately. California, Arizona, Oklahoma, Nebraska, South Dakota, Iowa, Illinois, Texas, Florida, Connecticut, Arkansas.
Perfect. I need to get on those Facebook groups so I can drop the podcast out there.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Some of them are just in launch phase, but honestly, we are just, like I said, revival of small business. It's about connecting people and leaning into each other, and being there to support one another in this. And that's what we are looking to do, in 2021. So,
Well, Erin, thank you so much for coming on to the show today. Take care and God bless.
thank you, Evan. It was great.